You're ready to start.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for attending. This meeting is a community meeting for a special use permit 2115, which is the Midway to Martin Store transmission line upgrade. I'm Scott Clark. I'm with the Albemarle County Community Development Department. I'm the lead reviewer on this application. And the purpose of tonight's meeting is to give anybody who's interested in the area or otherwise information about this proposal as we're getting started on the review. I will give you a brief introduction for those who aren't familiar to the county's process for legislative reviews like special use permits and rezonings. Then we'll have a presentation from the applicants with the details of the application and what they're proposing to do. And finally, we'll have a question and answer session where you can ask the applicants more information about the project, or you can ask me questions about how the county process works. So I will go ahead and get started with my part of that, and then I'll hand it over to the applicants after a few minutes here. Just going to share my screen, and then we'll get going. There we go. All right, so as mentioned, this is an informational meeting for SP2021-15, the Midway to Martin Store transmission line. All right, and again, the purpose of this is to share information about the proposed project, how the process works, and relevant policies and regulations, and to solicit public input on the project, either now or later. You're welcome to make input on this. And again, we do provide that input to the Commission and the Board of Supervisors. So to begin with the county's part of the process, everything we do in terms of land use decision-making is guided by the comprehensive plan. So I'll start with the plan, and then I'll get into the details of zoning and the applicable regulations. What is the comprehensive plan? It's a document that establishes a land use vision for the county, sets our policies for how land in the county is used, and these are established through extensive consultation with the community, and we tend to update that plan every 5 years. The project that we're talking about today is located in an area that's designated as rural area in the comprehensive plan. And while there is a long section in the plan about what our goals are and why for the rural areas, this is a good summary. The overarching goal for that chapter of the plan is here. The rural area will have thriving farms and forests, traditional crossroads communities, scenic areas, historic sites, and preserved natural resources. And there are several objectives below that that address aspects of the rural areas: strong agricultural and forestal economy, protected and preserved natural resources, historic archaeological and cultural resources, protecting rural and historic landscapes, both for residents and for visitors, supporting the crossroads communities, providing distinct boundaries between the rural area and development areas, and keeping our citizens well informed for making decisions about the rural areas. Final objective is more about land areas that are affected by the county and the university. So that's the plan. That's how we set our policies for what should happen in various areas of the county. What is zoning? The zoning ordinance is a set of laws about specifically what you can build and where. And there are many different zoning districts in the county. Here's a little snippet of a map at the bottom there. You can see lots of different colors that reflect different residential and commercial and institutional zoning districts. And then there's the white area around that, which is representing the rural areas or RA zoning district. That's what the project that we're talking about today is located in. And again, different from the plan, which says what rural areas should be like and what should be going on. The zoning ordinance is a specific list of permitted activities and regulations for them. So zoning ordinance sets what can be done by right today. Things like in the RA district, agriculture, forestry, having a dwelling, many other things that can just be done by right. But like all of the other zoning ordinance sections that affect the county, there's also a section that lists uses that are only permitted by special use permit. They might or might not be permitted depending on the details of what's proposed. And I'll go into a little detail of how that works. This is roughly similar for rezonings. Rezonings are for changing the categories of uses that are allowed. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about a special use permit. If a property owner wants to change the zoning district, again, that's not today's proposal, or develop a use that's on the special use permit list in the zoning district, the Board of Supervisors, approval by the Board of Supervisors is required. This is a legislative review. So unlike a by right use, this is a use that can only be approved after it goes through this lengthy review process and can only happen if the Board of Supervisors approves the establishment of that use. And there are various stages to this review. First, where we are right now is county staff and other agencies review it. Eventually, there will be a public hearing with the Planning Commission, and finally, a public hearing with the Board of Supervisors for the board to take input and make a decision. Now, we have a set of standards that apply to all special use permits, whether it's a drive-through in a gas station or a restaurant in a commercial district, or whether it's a power line or utility facility in the rural areas. They all have a common set of standards for how we should evaluate them and how we should decide on them. There's these four are the major ones. No substantial detriment, whether the proposed use would be a substantial detriment to adjacent properties, whether or not the character of the area is unchanged. Harmony, meaning harmony with the other uses that are permitted by right in the district. And finally, consistency with the comprehensive plan. Again, we always refer back to that set of policies I mentioned in the beginning for what any given area, rural area or otherwise, should be like and how it should be developed. So that's the process. Now, how does the process overall happen? This is a graphic that some of my colleagues made that shows the overall timeline for any kind of development that requires a special use permit or a rezoning. And there's the legislative part at the beginning. Later, there's the more detailed site design review. And finally, at the end, we've got building permits and zoning clearances, which are the very detailed matters for meeting regulations on structures and access and things like that. Where are we now? We're about there. We're very early on in this process. And this is why we have these community meetings, is to get the information out to people who might be affected by or interested in a proposal, and make sure they're informed and have a chance to learn about it and to give their input. So on this particular application, we received the application on September 20th. The review began about a week after that. We've sent comments to the applicant for some additional information about the application that went out on November 5th. The public hearings have not yet been scheduled. They won't be until we hear back from the applicants with some responses on our questions. And at that point, we'll arrange with them to pick out a possible Planning Commission public hearing date where they can have the commission hear their proposal. And we will be sending a letter out to those landowners who are adjacent to the parcels included in this application. And any of you are willing to are welcome, not willing, welcome to contact me at any time at the email address there to find out more or to find out where we stand in the overall process. So that's just a quick overview of how our process works. When we get to the question and answer at the end, I'll be happy to fill in any details that are of interest to you. But for the moment, I will stop sharing my screen. And I will turn it over to the applicants to give a detailed presentation on what it is they're proposing, and then we'll go into the Q&A.
Can everyone see my screen with the map on it?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, great. Mr. Ward, are you able to speak and discuss the description of the project, overall description, and I can help share the drawings?
There you go. I had you on mute. Sorry about that. My name is Charles Ward. I'm the manager of engineering services at Central Virginia Electric Cooperative. We are wanting to rebuild the existing Midway to Martin Store transmission line. This is phase one of either 2 or 3 phases, depending on budget restrictions that we'll be doing for this project. This particular project is about 3.7 miles long from our Midway substation in the north top right-hand corner of this screen. And we're going down to right at Thunder Ridge Road on the Craig Store Road where it turns off, and that's where we'll be stopping temporarily. And then in a couple years, we'll budget to continue that on through Albemarle County, and it will eventually go all the way to Martin Store substation in Nelson County. The total distance from Midway to Martin Store is approximately 11 or so miles. So this is about a third of it. The existing transmission line is a 40+ year transmission line, and it's built on wood H-frame structures. Now, H-frame structure is 2 poles that looks just like an H. It's 2 poles, and it has a cross arm that runs between both poles. The poles are currently wood, and the cross arm is wood. This transmission line is a radial transmission line. The radial means that it has no other source. It only feeds to a dead end. So this is a radial transmission line, and it feeds 4 other substations, which accumulate to about 6,750 customers total, including the Wintergreen Resort area. So when we have a problem on this line, it affects all 6,750 customers. The wood cross arms and the poles are deteriorating because of age. The wood cross arms are rotting from inside out, so it's hard for us to tell that there is a defective cross arm until it breaks. And we have had some problems. We've had as many, I think, 3 issues in the recent years where we've lost power to 6,750 customers. And because it is a transmission line, it does take a little bit longer to restore and get the power back on, as opposed to a distribution line. So this project will replace the H-frame, the wood H-frame structures and the wood cross arms with a single pole metal pole. It's a ductile iron pole. It's weathered to look, it'll look like it's a dark brown. So it's a very, very nice looking pole. But it'll be a single pole line versus the H-frame. And it'll be vertical construction, so we won't have to have the cross arm. There won't be any cross arm or anything on it. For that reason, the poles will be slightly taller. some of them will be about the same size as the poles that's out there. Some of them be slightly taller. They're also along the line from Midway down to Batesville Road. That area has a distribution line that is, well, it actually goes probably maybe another half mile past south of Batesville Road. There's a distribution line that runs parallel to the transmission line. We're going to remove those poles and underbuild the distribution line onto the transmission line pole line. So basically, in most of that area from Midway to about a half a mile south of Batesville Road, we're going to be removing 3 poles and going back with a single pole. This will be completely built within our existing easement. We will not have to require any additional easement. The easement is already cleared, so there won't be any major significant tree clearing or anything like that. It'll be a much cleaner, much better looking line when we get finished. And it will be built pretty close to down the center of our easement. Currently, the existing transmission line hugs to the west side of our easement a little bit. And so the new line will be built down the center. It'll be about 25 feet east of the existing outside phase of the existing line. Because we are underbuilding the distribution line, there are a few places. It'd be hard to talk about that specifically here, but there are a few places that there would be a distribution pole put in line that will fall below the transmission line. The transmission lines can span a much further distance than the distribution line can. So this area is quite hilly. And so we can take the transmission line from the top of a hill to the top of the hill, and we can pull that line, 1,000 feet. But the distribution line can't go that far. It's limited to about 500 feet. So what we would have to do then is drop down in the easement, still be in the same easement in line with the transmission line. We would drop down and put a distribution pole directly underneath the transmission line. And then the distribution line would hit that distribution pole and then come back to the transmission line and continue on. There's a few of those. I don't know exactly how many at this right now, but there are just a few of those, not very many of them. For the most part, we're able to stay just directly on the transmission poles. The poles will range in height. The existing poles are 60 to 70 feet. And the new poles will range in height from 70 to 95 feet. There is, I think, 100-foot pole. It will be buried 15 feet in the ground. And so the final height will be 85 feet of it. But again, these will be single pole line, tile iron. It's a 75-year pole, supposed to last 75 years. So we wouldn't have any need. That's the design of the transmission line. So we wouldn't have any need to get back in there to replace any poles or rework the line or anything, barring any major storm event like a tornado or something that might take out some poles or a line. We're trying to build the line at a very high reliability for the customers that served all along the area, because even the customer just outside the Midway substation, all the way to Martin Store, any of those customers, all the way to the top of Wintergreen Mountain, any of those customers are affected if this line falls down. Do we have any questions?
I think if anybody has a question, if you can just hit the raise hand button on your screen so that Carolyn can see that you'd like to ask a question. She can let you have access to the meeting, and so you can speak and have questions answered.
Supervisor Palmer, you can go ahead and go first.
I just have one question. I know, Chuck, that you said the difference in the height of the poles, but could you just repeat what is the greatest change in height of the poles? I know it's different for different places depending on the topography, but what's the largest difference?
The largest difference, Brianna, is David on the line, or I know Grayson's not? I don't know this. I don't know this, you know, for certain. I can check it out and get back with you. But I think the one single largest change on any particular pole is probably going to be around 15, no more than 20 feet, 15 to 20 feet.
All right, thank you. That's just the most common question I get from folks as these things go forward. So I wanted to have an answer for that. Thank you. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now we have Chris O'Brien. Chris, go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, well, this is Marianne O'Brien. Chris is here also. We've spoken to CVEC and they're going to come out tomorrow to address our specific property since the pole will be going through our front yard. But we're just curious, do these new poles require guy wires like the old poles do?
Yes, they will. Most likely everywhere that there is an existing guy wire, there will be a guy wire that's required for the new line.
Thank you.
At this time, I don't have anybody else with their hand up.
If anybody has any questions, this is your chance. So please go ahead and raise your hand and let us know if you would like to get some more information. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I'll just say again, thanks to the applicants, Chuck and Brianna, for giving us the details on that proposal. Again, my name is Scott Clark. I'm at sclark@albemarle.org. If you do have any questions later or find that you want to give an update on the process, please feel free to check in with me and I'll update you on where we stand. And or if there are people you know of who weren't able to attend tonight who have questions, they can obviously contact me as well. But it looks like we don't have any more questions. So if that's the case, I think, Carolyn, we can go ahead and close this out.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.